It doesn't matter how good your personal marketing and advertising is, there's a very strong probability that it's going to get forgotten within a very short period of time, probably the first day, in fact. You see, the average consumer in Australia today is getting over 3,000 advertising or marketing messages per day on average. So how do they decide who to choose? There's apparently over 30,000 professional financial advisors in Australia, more than 8,000 in New Zealand. So how do consumers decide who to choose out of that group? The question that comes out of that is, can branding make a difference? And as financial advisors, you can't afford to position yourselves as anything less than professional, can you? So to a large degree, one of the problems you have is that you have to appear on the surface to be the same as your competitors, just to be credible. Now that means that most of the time the advertising that financial advisors do gets lost in the clutter of those 3,000 plus marketing messages per day. So what I'm going to try and resolve today, hopefully just in this session, is this tricky question of how financial advisors can get the brand you part right so that you can create something which sticks out in people's minds but doesn't alienate you from your profession. Because that biggest advisor marketing challenge is how to be different while blending in. So to begin the branding journey, you need to understand generically what branding is, where it matters. We need to have a little bit of a think about how individuals have brands and where that fits in with your business branding, which can be quite different. And from there, we're going to look at how you can create your own value proposition, which you'll come to understand, I hope, is sitting at the heart of your personal branding. We'll talk about some things that add to or detract from your personal brand. And at different times, I am going to use examples from my business and my experience. And I'd just like to stress at the start that I don't think I've nailed it. I think it's very much a work in progress. However, one of the key objectives of this summit, of course, is to have practitioners and fellow financial services professionals sharing with you what they've done and what they've learned, or sometimes had to unlearn and relearn. So they're the things that we're going to try and cover today, including how to get a little bit of free press tips and how to leverage from other people. But for the next few days, you're going to be focused on using today's technology and the social networking tidal wave to help you in your marketing and building your business. I don't think there's any doubt any longer that there's a strong connection between social media success and building your business or having business success. I think the jury's in. There's a convincing case that social media helps you get business. But what part does branding play in that? Most of us would agree that there's no doubt social media channels such as the Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're increasingly the resources of choice for consumers. That's where they go to collect information, assess their choices, and connect with businesses. And this is where branding does begin to matter. Let's put that in plain English. What it says is brand awareness matters. People are far more likely to buy from brands that they know and trust. So in your marketing, I tend to believe that everything begins with branding. Because that challenge, as I talked about it before, for professional financial advisors is how to be different and stand out while blending in. Have a look at that picture though, because that's what you're trying to achieve as a professional, isn't it? That's what you're trying to achieve. You want to be different, but you want to blend in. And this is the centre of your marketing problem. Branding is the thing that's going to capture what you've done, what you've created, what you are, your position, your proposition, the values you have, the good things that you've achieved, and tells your potential customers what you stand for and why they should use you. Generally, when we're talking about branding, everyone thinks about these things. They think about the big logos. But branding's a heck of a lot more than that. The term itself gets used interchangeably to describe a whole bunch of things. Value propositions, vision, marketing, purpose, identity, taglines, PR. All of those sorts of things get caught up in the word branding. And it's a number of those things, but it's not all of them. In academic terms, a brand is a unique selling proposition or a value proposition. It's a brand identity and it's a position. So I'm going to cover all of these elements in detail, particularly in how you can use them in your business. But just to remove any confusion, I'd just like to try and put a couple of pointers up there so that we understand where different parts of the marketing equation fit in. Marketing. Marketing is telling your brand story. Advertising is the simple promotion of your story or your brand, right? Public relations is personalising the marketing. But personal branding is when the market knows and understands what you stand for. That's what personal branding is. You see, your brand is actually what people believe about you. It's not what is true, it's not what is fact, it's not even what's logical. It's just simply what they've come to believe is true. If they believe you're a great lover, you're a great lover. Okay? That's what branding is. So the question that we should be asking ourselves is, do we have the brand we want people to believe? Now, by and large, we each have the choice of creating that brand that we want or accepting one which is given to us by the market. And we're going to have a look at a few examples of a few individuals. And I've got a pretty simple question that follows at the end of it. But along the way, just have a look at these pictures, think about each person, and make a decision in your own mind about who has tried to manage their brand and managed it well, and who's left it to the market to decide. And the question that I throw to you at the end is, do you have any doubts about the power of a personal brand? So let's start with this guy. Probably the most powerful personal brand in the world today. He stands for hope, doesn't he? Whether you agree with his politics or not, he stands for hope. Steve Jobs, he's dead. His brand is immense. He's all about innovation, isn't he? Quality innovation. What about that bloke? Don't think he quite managed the brand so well, huh? No, Brand Armstrong, it's shot. What about this lady, Gina Rinehart? She's an interesting character. Now, this is clearly someone who has so much money and so much power and so much influence that she doesn't care what you think. Does she? What about Elle Macpherson? Now, I'm going to confess that I had a lot of fun looking for the next picture to use of Elle. There's a lot to choose from. I spent a lot of time on my research. Elle Macpherson. The one thing that you would have to say about brand Elle is that she is authentic, isn't she? That's not the picture you thought I was going to choose, is it? Give you one more. Now, please note, I'm not making any comment at all on Julia as a person, I don't even know her, or her politics, but clearly this is an example of a person that's not managing her brand well. Okay? And that was after she first got elected. The headlines have got worse. Okay, I'll give you one more, last one. What about this bloke? Sir Donald Bradman. Does he have a brand? Even dead, many, many years later. Anybody here ever read one of the biographies on the Don? Yeah? I think you'd agree with me that there's no doubt, if you read any of the biographies of Sir Donald Bradman, this is a man that was very aware of his position, his image, his brand, and the values they stood for. And he managed that to the end of his days. He was very aware of it. So does anyone here have any doubt that individuals have a brand? Because you can go to the beach where it's really good. Okay? That's good. So some people are managing them well and some aren't. Oh, we'll just move past the Don. I have to talk about, so you can understand what we're going to do in the value proposition, those attributes of a brand in a little bit more detail. And again, this is into a boring part, so I'll probably throw random things at you shortly. Remember that waiver you signed on the way in? Yeah, I hope I don't hurt you, but if I do, unlucky. Okay? The value proposition, the brand identity, and the position. Most advisor businesses, in fact, most professional service businesses, they compete in the customer's mind on approximation and relationships. And we're driven to do that by that need to look professional. We have to look like our peers, otherwise we're not taken seriously, correct? Now, approximation is where there's no real difference in the customer's mind between two choices. Now, we might, as competitors, effectively make the point that there are some minor differences, but to the customers out there at large, we're roughly all the same. They might understand that advisor A can do some things that advisor B can't, or advisor B can't do some things that advisor A can, but generally speaking, you're all pretty much of a muchness. That's how consumers think. So the difficulty for the customers, for us, is that they can't weigh up the perceived differences. They've got no way of doing that unless we have a brand or a position that tells them. And if we don't have one, they have a tendency to revert to those things that they can measure. Price, past performance, service promise, those types of things is what they tend to measure. And that's where most advice firms find themselves having to compete on a relationship basis. All other things are approximately equal to the customers, but humans will mostly do business with people they know and trust. So the most successful firms have tended to be those that have been most successful at selling the trust and like concept. So the main path for us as professional advisors to attract that quality pricing and that premium value from the market is to be unique at the individual advisor level. That's where we have to compete. That strong personal branding is what separates us in the customer's mind. So you personally, as an advisor, as a professional, you're personally the most likely driver of premium pricing and value for you as a business. Now, most of us have got at least 2 brands, if not more, that we're using and working with. Would you agree? We've got a business brand, we might have a dealer group brand, we might have all sorts, we might have professional association brands, and then there's us. So we're often working with 2 or more brands, and it makes it easier if you understand where they overlap or where they should overlap and meet in the customer's mind. So your business has a brand, good, bad or neutral, and you personally have a brand that's either good, bad or neutral. How do the 2 overlap? Where do they meet? It's at that value proposition that I keep talking about and I'm going to explain in a lot more detail shortly. That lies at the heart of what a brand is. But the value proposition of a business, your company, it could well be, in fact, probably should be very different to your personal brand. Different but highly complementary. So the intersection of business branding and personal branding is in that strategic value proposition. Let's move on one more. That strategic value proposition, that oval sitting in the middle, that's the thing that a business should be competing on. And we're talking about the company, the big brand that is on your business cards and the things that you use. See, unlike your personal value proposition, which is used to articulate why somebody should choose you personally, the business brand's value proposition is going to be a far less personal piece of positioning. And there's broadly only about 4 strategies that a company can use to go out and take a position in the marketplace. It can either create or do something totally new. It can be something which works at a higher level of performance or at a better quality than others in the same industry. It can simply be more efficient. Or it can provide an essentials-only type business where it's reducing or taking away things that the rest of the industry takes for granted. Now, many of the businesses in our sector that flounder along are floundering because they're trying to do more than one of these things at the same time. They don't have a core strategy. And then they wonder why their value proposition isn't clear to the marketplace. So my business personally, it's strictly business. You can see on the bottom of all the slides, a little bit of subliminal advertising there. My chosen strategy, and I'm not saying that I've achieved it, but it's what I'm trying to achieve, my chosen strategy is to try and compete in that be the best in the business space. So everything my business tries to do or does needs to be aiming to be amongst the best, if not the very best. That's what the brand is trying to promise the marketplace. When it comes to my personal branding, Tony Vidler, the personal proposition, it must reflect those objectives. But it's got to be different. It's got to make me stand out from that brand there. And it's the same thing that you have to grapple with. So when we have this business brand and that personal brand and they don't meet up, what happens? That's what the market thinks, isn't it? That's exactly what the market thinks when they don't meet up. You will often see in our business advisors who take a position where they're taking shortcuts on preparation or their research or their presentation material. They might maintain a price or a cost focus. They're not too keen on following through on some of the details, perhaps. And yet at the same time, they're working for a company that's saying, we're the best in the business. Now, can you see the credibility gap in a consumer's mind when they get those 2 messages? Someone who doesn't care, working for a business that says, we care more than anything else on the planet. That's incongruous. And as soon as that happens, the customer is saying, are you serious? Your credibility is out the window. So in the absence of that strong brand positioning that stands there and means something, these are the decision-making filters that customers go through. This is what happens in their minds if we don't get the branding right. The customer decision-making process will often begin with price. Remember that approximation thing? We're all approximately the same. So they begin with price. If the services are perceived as being about the same between two competitors, price becomes the first thing they check. If price is not an issue, or it's roughly equivalent, then delivery is the next screen that they use. And it's important to understand that delivery is not the same as service. Service is something you do after you have a client. It's how you deliver what you do. But delivery at that point of sale, of attracting customers to your business, it's largely about availability and convenience. How easy do you make it for them to do business with you? And I think this is probably an appropriate point to touch on what I see as a huge mistake in the industry for many individuals, is the using of generic titles in your personal branding, such as financial planner. Just a very quick show of hands, if anyone's brave enough, who uses something like financial planner in their personal branding or their marketing? No one? Oh, you guys don't need me. Okay, I'll tell you why it's a problem. It's very simple for us. We understand what the differences are between different types of advisors, don't we? We understand what the differences are in the labels and the acronyms and the qualifications and all of those sorts of things. But the bigger problem is that it's also very simple for the consumers, because they've seen that stuff in the papers. They've formed an opinion already on what that title means and what it's all about. Have any of you guys ever heard, and sorry if anybody hates swearing here, but any of you guys ever come across that client and you've heard them do this where they go, all financial planners are bastards, they're all lying, thieving rogues, except for mine. You ever heard that? I've heard it heaps. You go out and do seminars for customers, consumers that are trying to work out who to choose. That is the constant source of feedback that you get afterwards. Everyone in your industry is a lying, thieving bastard, except I got lucky, I got a good one. Now, don't know how it works over in Australia, but in New Zealand there's about 800,000 people that use personal financial advisors that all think they got lucky. Okay? They didn't all get lucky. Most advisors are professional and are doing the job well, but our image and our perception is incredibly awful. And every time we use that negative image in our personal branding and our personal positioning, we're taking a hit. So, given the choice of working on a personal brand that doesn't include those sorts of titles, I definitely wouldn't if I was you. So, moving along. The most important filter from our perspective is that relationships one. And the reason why that's the most important for us is because even if we have appalling branding or positioning or pretty ordinary marketing, this is actually one thing where advisors can heavily influence what happens in their customers' minds. Okay, it's the one thing that you can spend your marketing effort on and make a difference in terms of the results you get. So it tends to be something that as an industry, we do place a lot of emphasis on because we know that we can get some results from it. And it does tend to fit in with that business branding proposition. Now, this is very busy, but we're going to talk about it very quickly. How does that business brand and your personal brand fit in? I'll give you the short version. It fits in at that part called value proposition. Your business's purpose, that company's core purpose, what it does, the position it takes in the market, what the customer needs, what they want, what they're looking for, what they're hoping to get out of the business, what your own personal position is as an advisor, what your area of specialisation, your style, your manner of working, your unique selling proposition, the thing that makes you different, that leads them to choose you, and your brand identity. All of those things need to meet at that value proposition. That's the one thing that holds all of those brands together, and that's where they need to overlap. Everything swings on that value proposition. You're probably going to get fed up with me saying that this afternoon. Because we come back to this central problem that we have as professional financial advisors, is how to be different without looking like we don't fit in. So here's the tough question for most advisors. Why should anyone deal with you? Excellent. Silence. It was rhetorical. Don't worry about it. It was rhetorical. Okay, but why should anyone deal with you? It's a tough question, isn't it? Like most things that are tough, it's a little bit easier if you break it down into smaller and easier to manage questions. Now, having said that they're smaller and easier to manage questions, the first one's still actually quite tough. Because most of us are wired to be fairly humble and coy, aren't we? Yeah. You did a fantastic job there. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah. Mate, you look good today. Oh, this whole thing, you know. It's the way we're wired. Yeah. So this is an area for advisors that is actually really, really difficult to zero in on why are you so special. And quite frankly, you need to be honest with yourself here. If there's something that you're particularly good at, then recognise it and play to your strengths. Nobody ever succeeds in anything in business without playing to their strengths. And I'm sorry, this is where I fundamentally disagree with those people that say you should always strengthen your weaknesses. What's the point? What's the point? Doesn't matter how much I strengthen them, somebody's still going to be stronger. Play to your strengths. So be honest with yourself and look at what you are damn good at. Okay? Now, don't make the mistake, as many advisors do, in fact, many professionals of all professions do, of zeroing in on what I would call the hygiene factor stuff. Okay? You start saying, why are you so special? And the advisors say, oh, I'm honest, I'm trustworthy, I've got great technical skill. Yes, so what? Okay, let's be blunt. The bottom line is everyone here is all of those things, aren't they? Everyone is. It doesn't make you special. It sure doesn't make you special in the customer's minds because that's a given. They expect that if you're a professional, you are all of those things. So don't try and highlight those sorts of issues as being things that make you special and unique. They're not. They're just what the consumers have a right to expect. Do you know who you're actually targeting? There's a little bit of marketing 101 in this, but do you know who it is you're actually targeting? Do you know who it is you work best with? Who it is that can benefit most from what you know and do? Do you know how they benefit from what you know and do? And I'm going to give you a practical tool very, very shortly to work through that you can use later on. All of the PowerPoints and things are available later, of course, and you can print off. If you can't print it off, just get in touch with me and I'll send you one. But you need to be able to work through these issues because these are the ingredients that make up your value proposition, the thing that you can take to the market that says, this is why you should choose me. So, in that value proposition or unique selling proposition, use whichever term you like, it doesn't matter, they get used interchangeably. What are the things that need to be there? To be powerful and to set you up as a unique brand, it's going to be a little bit like coming up with a perfect tweet, 140 characters, you don't have a lot to play with. And somehow in that very short message, because you're not going to get a lot of attention, what did Baz say earlier on? 4 to 10 seconds before they've disengaged with your website that you spent $1 gazillion and God knows how many hours putting together just to engage them. Yep. People disengage very, very quickly. So somehow you've got to zero in on all of these things. But the overarching thing is it's got to portray a benefit to a customer straight away. They've got to see that straight away. Clearly it's got to define what you do. It differentiates you from your competitors. But it's got to intrigue and invite further questioning because that's the art of moving from marketing to selling, is creating a conversation, isn't it? Your marketing creates opportunities, your selling converts opportunities. Creating a conversation is the thing that links the two. So when it comes to your personal value proposition, it has to intrigue and invite further comment. It's got to be really strong and action-orientated, heavy on the verbs. It's got to be in simple language, not because people are simple, they're not, but they're time and attention poor. And if you use our jargon and they don't understand it, they're disengaged immediately. More importantly, you have to believe it, you have to have conviction because you're going to come across as a complete wuss if you go, oh yeah, we're pretty much the best in the business at this, I think. Seriously, would I hire you? I don't think so. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples. And these are not necessarily great, but it's good enough. It seems to work. Here's an example. Me. Okay. That first line is effectively a positioning statement. Okay? So my target market is a little bit different to yours perhaps, but it's a positioning statement. Advisor to the advice industry. Okay, that tells people pretty much who I work with. Yep. But the value proposition, get their attention really quickly. I get my customers more customers. Does that generally tend to intrigue and arouse some interest? I haven't met a business owner yet that says, damn, I don't need any more customers. Okay. And then it creates the conversation. That's what a value proposition or a unique selling proposition does. Positions you. It invites and intrigues people to go further because it's that thing that creates the conversation that makes marketing and selling match up. So that's one example. Now you can build your own value proposition or unique selling proposition easily enough, and I've done this with advisors for a long time. Here's the sheet, and as I said, you all have this later on, so don't quickly try and go, how do I write this out on my iPad? Okay. Anyway. But I've done this with a lot of advisors for a long time, and every so often you come across an advisor that goes, 20 minutes, bang, they're sorted. But some guys struggle with this for years, yet the process is really simple. It seems a hard thing to come up with, but the process of getting there is actually really, really simple. It's all captured on this worksheet here, but clearly you need to understand and capture what it is that you do. And the biggest tip that I'd give you here is think about what you do in terms of how your customers describe it. Don't use our language, think about how they describe what you do. Another thing that will help you zero in on what makes you fantastic is understanding why a customer might choose a competitor. Because in thinking about why they might choose a competitor, and I know this sounds odd, it actually helps you understand what it is about yourself that is different and how you work differently. Now, naturally, you do need to know what your ideal target market is and work out who those ideals are. But for most of us, most of the time, we're not always working with ideal clients. We've got some ideal clients, but we've got a lot of what we'd call good clients. You know, they're people that they're good to work with. We work well with them. We achieve good results for them. But, you know, hey, if I was getting to choose just 100 clients to live with forevermore, they're not going to be in that group. But your value proposition still needs to appeal to them as much as it does to your ideal target market. And as I said, you really need to think about the benefit that a client gets from working with you. Because at the end of the day, captured up the very top, this is broadly speaking the formula for coming up with your own value proposition is what are you brilliant at? What are you passionate about? And how does somebody gain from that? That's it in a nutshell. It's not that difficult. It's difficult if you don't think you're brilliant at something. It's difficult if you don't think anybody gains from working with you. But if you do think you're brilliant at something and you do think people genuinely benefit from working with you, it's going to be pretty easy to zero in on this value proposition, isn't it? So let's use some examples from our industry. Now, every time I put up examples, there's always people that go, oh, I don't like that, I wouldn't use that. That's fair enough, because these aren't about you. These are about other people, other individuals. So these are ones that I've come across people, I'm not saying I created these, I didn't, but these are ones that I've come across, people that I know in business, putting in place the plans that buy people time when they need it most. Okay? Helping businesses stay solvent when disasters strike. The ability to grasp complex technical information really quickly and provide practical outcomes. Okay? This one's a bit ho-hum, I think, but the ability to positively influence people, I would choose different words myself, but I like the gist of this. I can help change behaviour. I like this one. This is a good one. I arrange the plan and the tools that help people get predictable income streams when they're no longer working. Now, the bloke I know that uses this, he has no prospecting problems. People go, hell, give me some of that. Do you get the point? This one here, the real power is in those last 3-4 words. That's the real power in this value proposition. Because people go, hallelujah, brother. Somebody who can fix my financial headaches. So that's what a value proposition does in terms of creating that personal branding. It positions you in the customer's mind, your ideal customer's mind, as being someone that they can benefit from spending some time with because they can see a clear outcome straight away. And that's personal branding. So as I said, all right, okay, brand you is about trying to be different, while blending in, because as professionals, we can't afford to stand out and not look professional. Which brings us on to this business of how you manage your brand. And I suspect that nobody here needs any lessons on how to manage their professional behaviour. And I think Warren Buffett summed it up best for all of us. It's a little bit like a house of cards. You can spend 20 years building the thing, and it takes one thoughtless act, one thoughtless moment, one thoughtless phrase to destroy it. 20 years worth of work. When you're using social media, that's even more important. And I could sit here and spend a lot of time throwing up examples of people that are piggybacking trending stories, or business owners who suddenly decide to share with their audience their personal, moral, political, sexual beliefs, whatever. And you go, dude, what are you thinking? Okay? You'll know instinctively what not to do. Okay? But if you're in doubt, I'd like to share with you a simple test that we use in New Zealand. There's a show there called Fair Go. Apart from the Kiwis, has anybody heard of it? Good. Try not to get on it. Okay? It's a television show in New Zealand that champions consumers' rights and champions their complaints. And usually it involves chasing a business owner down a street with a video camera. Okay? Now, you know the sort of show, you guys have got them here, right? But the Fair Go test, it's the best thing in the world for working out how to manage a brand. Whatever you do, say, write, share, how's it going to look if it gets on Fair Go? Because brand management is actually just about business ethics. You'll know how to do that. It's doing the right thing because it's right. And that's how you manage your brand, especially with social media. How's it going to look when it comes up on Fair Go? It'll make you pause sometimes. And I know I've been there perhaps on a Friday night with that third wine on board, and I've been nearly ready to tweet, and it's like, put the phone down, you fool, walk away. Okay? Sometimes you have to do that. Now, speaking of that professional image, one of the things that I think is really important, and again vastly underutilised by a lot of financial advisors, is the imagery and the visual elements of branding, because we don't tend to use them terribly well as an industry. So we're going to talk colour and branding, and this is a serious show your hands. Nobody gets shot for putting their hand up. How many of you in this room, on your business cards and your primary branding, how many use blue or green? What a surprise. Overwhelming colours of choice for financial services worldwide. Most financial services brands have blue or green in them. You ever thought about that and asked why? Anyone? Sorry, what was that?
Lewis Cheskin said it was the best colour.
I like that answer. That's good. Why is it the best answer? Best colours though?
It's light blue. It's not too cold. It's warm. It's strong. It's relaxing.
Might have a slightly different take on that, but I like the beginning of your answer, and I agree with you. Okay. Blues and greens, dominant colours in financial services logos. Okay. We're coming back to that. What are the colours of the world's top brands? Now, I'm not saying these guys get it right, but they're worth more money than the rest of us put together.
Red.
The world's top brands. Can we learn anything from them? Possibly. Remembering that innovation and differentiation is often not about creating something new. Does anybody here know the name of the guy who invented the wheel? But we can all cite the names of people who have managed to put 2, 4 or more wheels together in a new or different way, can't we? Yep. Okay. Innovation and differentiation is often about taking what is known and rearranging it in a new way. So we can learn a little bit from some of the world's top brands. Beg, borrow, imitate. Why not? Because they'll steal from you. But they can give you pointers. So I'm going to talk about why I chose what I chose. Okay, so here's the 2 colours that I tend to use. Strong navy blue, vibrant yellows. And it's not coincidental that because I'm sitting here talking today, I've got on a bright yellow tie. It's not coincidental. We'll talk about that in a second as well. But the reasons why I chose these, and this is where I said I'll vary slightly. Subconsciously, humans associate with strong dark blues trustworthiness, dependability, reliability. And yet with vibrant yellows, they think warmth, positivity, motivation, creativity. Now, they're the things that I actually want my business to be known for. Reliable, dependable, trustworthy, but we're going to create stuff. We're going to be positive. We're going to make it better. So it's quite a deliberate choice on my part to zero in on those colours. It also helps that there's very few people in financial services that have yellow as a dominant colour, so it helps you stand out a little bit more. But in effect, what I'm trying to do is tap into the attributes that people subconsciously give colours on a conscious level. I'm trying to do it consciously. And I'd suggest that while colour itself is not going to help you win or lose the battle in business, you might as well use everything to your advantage that's out there. And if people are already starting to think these thoughts about certain colours, use it. Okay? And then having decided on whatever your colours are, again, just as an example, I'm not saying this is fantastic, you've got to be consistent in how you use them. And the reason why you need to be consistent is because consistency brings familiarity. And people, when they are familiar with something, trust it more. So the more familiar they become with your look, your feel, your colours, your position, the more they trust you. That's why consistency is so critical in that branding position. Now, I'm not going to place too much emphasis on all of this stuff because the colours, as I say, I don't think they matter that much, but you may as well choose what's going to work to convey the images and the thoughts that you want conveyed. So clearly you're going to use them in things like your blogs and your social media avatars and your photos and all those sorts of things. But you need to also think a little bit laterally and a little bit subtly about your branding. We're moving away from colours a little bit here, but yeah, you guys have all got personal Wi-Fi networks and hotspots on your phones and things, yeah? Most of you would probably have it called Vodafone 1234, yeah, or Bill's network piss off. Why not use that as an... Did somebody just object? It's either that or we have a guest duck. That's another branding, positioning opportunity. And I'll give you an example. I call my own Wi-Fi hotspot network Tony Vidler. Wow, that's original. How'd you think that up? But I was at a conference in Sydney last year and people were on the phones during the break and they were looking to connect and they're all trying to do it on the cheap because financial advisors hate spending money. So they're all trying to do it on the cheap and they're trying to piggyback somebody else's phone account. Next thing I had about 3 people come and say, I didn't know you were at the conference. Fantastic. Okay? But they're looking for a hotspot and they're going, Tony Vidler, he's here. Fantastic, let's talk to him. Okay? Think about how you can use your branding and your positioning in innovative ways. Because that's subtle, it's discreet, it's innovative. But anyway, whatever your personal values are and however you choose to use it, we're going to talk about something from the movie Meet the Fockers. You all saw that? Good movie, eh? Alrighty, the circle of trust though. This is exactly what's happening with consumers, particularly in this age of militant consumerism, okay? Everything you do, every client engagement, is all about trying to get into and stay in their circle of trust, isn't it? So everything that you demonstrate in the way of behaviours, what you tweet, what you write, what you type, what you email, okay, what your branding says, everything that demonstrates your values, your behaviour, all of those things are going to do one of two things. They're going to get you into a customer's circle of trust or they're going to get you thrown out, okay? So we've all got that, we all know, and everyone's playing nicely and professional. So how do we position ourselves to get some extra credibility and publicity? A little bit of marketing 101. Have you all seen this? I'll skip past it if you've all seen this before. No, there's silence, I'll take that as consent. Excellent. To get people to buy anything, including you, this is the buying cycle that humans go through. And when I make these big general statements, they apply to sort of 96% of the world's population. And there's a guy called Dr. Robert Cialdini, Cialdini, who has written a number of books. He's all over YouTube. He's absolutely brilliant. He's entertaining. He'll talk to you all about influencing decisions. But generally speaking, 96 to 98% of the world, regardless of ethnicity, cultural position, they go through this cycle, unless they're psychopaths or sociopaths. First, you have to get their attention. Then you have to get their interest. Then you have to trigger their desire. Finally, they will act. That is the process that humans go through in making decisions. This part of getting their interest and converting that to desire is what we refer to as engagement or content marketing. So you have to keep prospects engaged until such time as they move into that desire phase. And today, in our world, being professionals, we have to let them come to us. So this is the phase where selling overlaps with marketing, okay, and your processes, your systems, your digital marketing strategy, which I'm going to show you what I do and how I do it. That should be about stoking that fire of desire until they're ready to engage with you. And the strategy I use is pretty simple. I didn't invent it, okay, and this is pretty much how it looks. One of the business basics, which is going to stay a business basic for a long time to come, is we're all in a numbers game. Not everyone that you engage with, no matter how good you are, no matter how brilliant your marketing is, not everyone's going to turn into a customer. So you have to create a system that generates enough potential prospects or customers continually. That's going to enable you to generate the sales volumes you need to meet your business and personal goals. Now, that's as true today as it was 100 years ago. So your marketing systems feed the top of the funnel. Okay? They create the opportunity. And social media as a marketing medium not only feeds the top of the funnel very nicely, but it actually provides the content that feeds the engagement marketing as it flows through as well. So you have to have a process of engagement in a digital marketing strategy that reaches out to prospects. Here's one of the things that I do say about social media, which doesn't always go down well with the great social media enthusiasts. Social media, and I'll talk about it more in a moment, social media is not the panacea. It's not the thing for all people. Because one of the issues in marketing is that it can't be guaranteed to get the message you want delivered to the market you want. All it can do is put it out into a place where they're most likely to be. And if you do it often enough, there's a good chance that they will see, hear, know you, but there's no guarantee of getting performance and reach to your target market. And of course, your objective with your marketing is to create that top-of-mind awareness, that trust, so that when they decide that they have an itch, they know who's going to scratch it. That's what you're trying to do with your marketing and your brand positioning, correct? Hopefully. Okay, and when they have an itch and they express a degree of desire, that's when that one-to-one, hand-to-hand combat called selling starts. Selling's an awful word. We're all professionals. None of us sell anymore, right? Rubbish. Okay? Selling has to happen every day. But this is the digital marketing strategy that has worked very well for me. It's worked very well for a number of others. In fact, there's a lot of advisors that I've gone through and helped create these systems for, and it works very well for them. Now, the thing that matters most, and Baz touched on this earlier on, is your website, is the thing that sits at the centre of this digital marketing strategy. It's the thing that creates and holds all the content that engages the people that you want to work with you. Because that marketing is creating the opportunities, and when you create the opportunities and bring them in, you've got to be able to give them something, feed them something, fuel their interest. Your website content needs to be frequently updated. It needs to be really content rich. Can't stress that enough. I don't want to echo the point that Baz made earlier on, so I'm whipping another minute out of the presentation here. But boy, just having a website that goes, God, we're good. Look at this picture of me getting an award. People go, who cares? If they're spending the time to go to your website or to engage with your business, give them something to walk away with that's useful to them straight away. Give them relevant content. Once you've got their interest, then they might go to the page that says, look at the picture of me getting an award, but they don't care about it at the start. They want to know if you can do something, provide something, give them something which helps them right now. Otherwise, as Baz said, Google, one click, away, they're gone. Okay, so content. Now, this is where the social networks are really, really handy because they're a great source of content. There's this virtuous cycle of being able to source content from your social media and use it in your social media and use it on your website even. Yeah, and you all know the rules of plagiarism. You don't steal stuff. Give people credit for it. You lose nothing, trust me, you lose nothing in giving people credit as experts and sharing their content. It reflects well on you. So, using the social media, there is this virtuous cycle of getting content, sharing content, posting content, moving content here, there, where. Or in plain English, the more you use the stuff, the more stuff you have to use and the more stuff you've got to share and the more people like your stuff. That's pretty much how it works. It'll help you get up on those Google search engine rankings too. Now, I believe that you cannot be passive with your marketing. You've got to reach out to engage with people. So that social media is not the be-all and end-all for me. It's not a complete solution. But while I'm a huge fan of digital marketing because it's cost effective, I'm a one-man business. There's no PA. I'm it. Okay? And I'll show you some numbers shortly about, who I work with, and well, not who I work with, but how some of these things have worked. The reality is, I'm still networking, I'm going to events, I'm known inside certain communities where people give you business and you go off and do presentations and events like this. There's a whole range of things that you as a professional advisor are going to do to promote your business. But social media can give you a lot of the fuel that you need to really amplify and accelerate that. It's a little bit like having a good bonfire ready to rock and roll, and social media gives you the gasoline. Right? Which don't try that at home, people. It's not good. Don't try that at home. Okay. So in a nutshell, digital marketing for me, selected social media channels plus personalised email marketing has created some brand love. And it's a strategy that's working well for a lot of advisors I know now. It's pretty simple. Chosen social media networks together with personalised email marketing, and that's a very, very important component, can create some brand love. Now, while it's fantastic creating that brand love, there's nothing better than using other people's networks. And I mean use in the nicest possible way. Okay? I do mean that in the nicest possible way. Personally, I've found that LinkedIn is the most effective social media network. It has been fabulous from my point of view, and I'm still a relatively newbie, I think, in these things. If you want to reach out to journalists and key influencers and people who can spread your message and your position and enhance your brand, it's a great place to go looking. But here's the thing, you need to be subtle in how you engage and connect with these people. It's, at the very least, crass to just go out and send invitations to a party to strangers. Okay? They don't want to hear from you. They've got their own friends, they've got their own professional networks. So be subtle about it. Have a look at their profile by all means. Have a look at what other social media accounts they've got. Follow them in those other social media places. Okay? Give complimentary feedback when they've posted good articles. Share their stuff. You'll get noticed. And when you get noticed, you can begin to interact. And when you begin to interact, you can connect. And when you connect, they will start to promote you. It's how you move people to become advocates who were formerly strangers. It also helps, of course, if you can be a reliable thought leader. Those in positions of influence, your journalists, your key centres of influence, they love having reliable, thoughtful, opinionated people that can feed them what they need for their networks. Now, you need to feed content into LinkedIn. Again, Baz touched on it a little bit this morning. And I'm not talking about just putting up an article on the home feed. You've got to get in and use the groups. They are incredibly powerful. Probably the most powerful thing on LinkedIn is the groups. They are fabulous for going out and getting yourself known and getting your stuff shared, getting your brand out there. Also, don't ignore sending stuff directly to contacts. If you've got a particular article, something which is genuinely of interest or use, send it to them. You can do that via LinkedIn. And by the way, if you haven't gone and had a look at how to change your LinkedIn profile in recent times, it's now really powerful from a personal branding point of view. Put videos on there, you can clip documents, you can highlight documents for 3 days, you can do all sorts of things. It's absolutely fabulous. So LinkedIn, I love. Twitter, boy, anybody here from LinkedIn that wants to give me a job? All right, Twitter. Twitter's a bit different. Content curation, it's a really powerful thing here. So finding and sharing the stuff that your target market is interested in is really what it's all about. It's a lot more free range, which is a way of saying she's loose as a goose. Okay? You have to interact with people. You have to show some personality. Courtesy goes a long way on Twitter. Do not underestimate the power of courtesy. If people share your stuff, if people go out and put your stuff into their networks, their professional peers, thank them for it. They didn't have to do it. And they tend to like you a heck of a lot if you are courteous. It matters a heck of a lot. Now, someone very early on told me the rule of thirds when it comes to Twitter, and it's roughly right, I think. No more than a third of what you put up on Twitter should be stuff about you or your stuff, okay? So no more than a third. About a third should be sharing other people's stuff that's of interest to your target market, your fraternity. And about a third should be personal engagement with people, thanking them, saying hello, having a quick little conversation. But it's got to be personal. This is a brand placement area where you have to be prepared to personalise your story. So that's a bit of a loose guide, but it's not a bad rule of thumb for managing Twitter. And it will help you get traction and trust, and then having other people share your name, your brand, your network. Facebook, I possibly have a very different view on Facebook to many others, but I'll share my view anyway, and you can bash me for it later. Facebook, videos and images rule. So if you're going to use it, you need to be really heavy on the graphics, really heavy on the videos, and very light on the writing. People, and I've been using Facebook for a little while now for marketing and business, and I tell you, you put up something with writing in it, nobody reads it, don't care. You put up a video that goes for 15 minutes about people falling off roofs, you get so many likes it's not funny, okay? It's ridiculous, but that's how Facebook works. Because, and this is the thing that you do need to think of with Facebook, you should never lose sight of the fact that on Facebook, you can never completely divorce your business from your personal pages. You cannot completely divorce the two. So anything that you do on your Facebook page, it's going to be feeding into the news feeds of the people that you cherish most. Yeah? And remember, for most of your friends and your family, Facebook is a place where they go and share memories. They laugh together about things that they don't necessarily want people outside the family to know about. Sometimes they cry together. Yeah? They don't want to be bombarded with business crap unless it's a free pizza offer. Okay? They don't want it. So you need to use Facebook, in my view, as a place where you let your personality shine out a little bit and be really mindful of what you post there, because you don't want to jeopardise the relationships that matter most, the family and friends. But if you do get the balance right, you do get people sharing your stuff and using your stuff, it does, once again, help with your search engine rankings and your social media influence scores and all those sorts of things. And that sort of brings us to Google, I guess, doesn't it? Do you like what you found out about you? Has anybody not Googled themselves? Of course not. It's a bad look if you Google yourself every day, though. It's a little bit over the top. Okay. One of the questions that keeps coming up, and I'm no expert on search engine optimization, I'm not even going to try to be. But one of the questions that keeps coming up is, how can I be better found on Google searches? And I sort of worked out some of this myself. I didn't pay anyone to come in and tell me about it. I went to Google AdWords and had a look at the AdWords that people were using and searching for when they were wanting to get an advisor, or when they were wanting some coaching or some expert help. So what sort of terms and phrases and words are they using? And in the Google AdWords, you can actually see what the competition levels are for certain words and phrases. And what that means is you can find words that consumers use a lot when they're Googling and looking for help, but very few websites or providers have got those words listed in their search engines. So there's a gap. Now, if there's a gap, lots of people are using those terms and not many people are using them in their advertising marketing. I'm going to zero in on that. And it's something that you should think about and have a look at for your own website, your social media platforms, your blogs, your newsletters, anything that you do online. Have a look at what the words and the phrases are that consumers are using to find people like you when they go looking. Because Baz was quite right. Everyone Googles everything now. If you get that part right, you will get a lot of traffic. And once you get a lot of traffic, then you start organically to keep going further and further up the search engine rankings. Now, it's not coincidental, and there's another advertisement, I guess, but it's not coincidental that the blog that I started, and I started dabbling, again, not an expert on this stuff, I started dabbling with this sort of 10 months ago. It was sort of okay. Then once I did that finding out the keywords that people were using, it's not coincidental that I changed the name of the blog to Financial Advisor Coach. And the reason why I did that is because the people that I want to work with, they're going out looking for financial advice, coaching, sales, expert guidance, advice, sales skills, sales tools. They're the things that they're putting into Google. So, hello, what am I going to use? See, I told you I wasn't a rocket scientist, but and one change, she starts to go through the roof. Okay? So, these things matter because they matter to customers. Okay? That's the stuff that customers are using. And if you want your marketing to be effective, of course, put your stuff out where the customers are. Now, having done that, it'd be fair to say that in the last 6 months I've gone up the Google search engine rankings for a Tony Vidler, which is really good. Because for ages, but if you ever Googled Tony Vidler, which none of you would have before, it's only me and my family who ever did that, but if you'd ever done that, you would have kept coming across this American academic architect who's really famous, and he's written books, and he has professorships all over the place, and he's an academic and he's famous. And if you didn't find him, you found a cross-dresser from England who kept putting up photos of herself, I'm not sure, on Saturday nights. And it was not a particularly convincing cross-dresser, it must be said. So fortunately, and I think the American famous Tony Vidler is probably really pleased that we've managed to push the cross-dresser out now. So she's gone. You're likely to get either him or me, and most likely me rather than him. So it matters, okay? And one of the tips I'll give you, of course, is on images. If you haven't done it yet, rename every image file you have, every video file you have, so that it's got your name, your business name, your chosen branding, either in the file name or in its search engine tags, okay? Image search is massive. It is absolutely massive. And when you call something 1234.jpg, Google doesn't know that's you. They've got no idea. It's worth spending some time getting your Google labels right. Now, whether or not you can get rid of the stuff that you don't want found, I don't know, but I know you can crowd it out with stuff that you do want found. Okay? So post more content that is clearly labelled you. It can be ascribed to you. It's about your name. It's going to get the stuff that you don't want found pushed down to page 18. So we're just about at the point where you're going to sit there going, oh my God, there's too much to do. But here's the guts of it, in a nutshell. You don't do these things, you're not going to have any customers, so you'll have plenty of time to get it right. The return on investment for doing all of these things, in my view, is business survival. You don't do it, you don't have a business in 5 years' time. I'm going to slide past very quickly some of the stuff that has come out from my business so far. And none of that's impressive. I mean, there's heaps of people here that have done better than this. But what's interesting about it all is it's happened very quickly. It's like once I finally twigged to how these things work, and I'm really quick. It took me about 6 months of dabbling with it to work it out. But once I really started to tweak it, the results have been exponential. That newsletter that I send out now is going to over 1,600 people that want it. Including sort of 300 of the most important influencers in the business. Ditto with all the others. Now, what all this means, of course, is that my business at the moment, and bear in mind my business model requires about 20 to 25 clients a year. And at the moment, I am actively and seriously engaged at a personal level with well over 2,000 people in my chosen target market that I would call ideal or good clients. So the question I'd throw to you is, who else wants that prospecting problem? I mean, do you want your next 5 years' worth of prospects or longer just sitting there engaged with you as a one-man band? It can be done so easily. Digital marketing, using social media, all it requires is time and effort. And I'll tell you that for the first 4 months, you're probably not going to be super impressed with the results because you probably get no results. But if you're prepared to put in the time, prepared to get credibility, prepared to get trusted, you're prepared to put in the effort, you will get the results. So going out and creating that social media buzz, I'm just going to recap very quickly, just leave it as bullet points. I don't need to run through them all for you. But you've got to get your marketing right first before you can go out and make social media work well for you. You've got to get that marketing right first. You've got to get that central brand proposition right, that core offering. Then you can go out and become effective in social media. Because before you can be effective in social media, you need to cut through the clutter of those 3,000 marketing or advertising messages a day that the consumers are getting. You have to create a position where your brand is recognised. Most people going down this path, when I talk to them about it, initially think that success looks something like that. And my experience has been rather more like this. And that's not put up as a funny, that's true. That's true. You duck and dive and go, oh, damn it, that didn't work so well. But hey, as long as you're not going out being an awful person, saying awful things, creating brand damage, mistakes are okay. Yeah, everybody in business gets up every day, and if you're really good at business, you're going to go out and make 20 or 30 new mistakes today. Yeah, that's how you grow and that's how your business goes. So that's what she really looks like. But I guarantee you that your market influence, your personal branding, is going to be a factor of these things. And this is what's going to set you up for the future if you get them right. It's going to be a factor of what you know multiplied by who you know. More importantly, what they believe about you. Because your brand you, is simply a combination of what you know, who you know, and what they choose to believe about you. So you may as well have them choose what you want them to believe. Thank you.